Conversion is something that you definitely want to have a handle on. If you're running ads, and I hear and see this all the time, and someone's managing your ads and they're talking to you about clicks and they're talking to you about click throughs, and it all looks really glowing. But on your side, you don't feel like you're converting that to business. You need to ensure your conversion tracking is in place. Stop and don't spend another single cent on advertising until you listen to this. I'm Marianne Amies. This is Ready, Set, Paid Ads, digital marketing for paid ad success. Let's go. Welcome back to another episode of Ready, Set, Paid Ads. In today's episode, I'm going to talk to you about metrics. Metrics are so important to any paid ad campaign that you run and really are important across all of your marketing activity. But often when we get reports and there's metrics in there, we're overwhelmed by the jargon and by the abbreviations. It's hard to, first of all, understand what your digital marketer is talking about, but then further to that, to understand what the implications are and what the metrics might be telling us. It's really important with your ads campaigns, especially if you're planning to manage them yourself, that you have a great understanding of the metrics available, but you also understand the levers you can pull to impact those metrics. Again, on top of that hard data, we want to make sure that we're layering in our expertise and our intuition, our emotional intelligence about what might be happening with the customer, because data doesn't always tell the whole story. But to dive in today, we're going to talk about 5 key metrics that you need to know what they mean. You need to know how to impact them. And they're going to save you time, they're going to save you budget, and they're going to save you sanity as well. So let's dive right in. So starting off is CTR. So CTR is our click-through rate. It tells us how people are engaging with our ads. So to measure this, we're going to take our clicks, we're going to divide them by our impressions, and we're going to times that by 100 to get a percent. So in your Meta platform or your Google Ads platform, you'll normally see your CTR expressed as a percent. So you might have a CTR of 2%, 3%, 0.2%, 5%. The higher the CTR, the better. So we want a really high CTR. That said, we kind of see a good CTR starting from about 2.5% and going up to 10 or 15% in really great cases. We don't expect that CTR to be 50%, 60%, 80%. Our impressions are the total number of people that see our ad or the total number of times our ads are seen. And our clicks are the action of clicking through. So if we're driving a traffic campaign, that's going to be clicks through to our website. So, it really matters because firstly, it tells us how effective our ad is. So a high click through rate is going to tell us that our creative cut through, or a high click through rate is going to tell us that our copy and our headlines were effective. We can often analyze different creative and different copy variations based on that click through rate. So if you're testing 5 creatives, you're going to be looking for high click through rates, firstly, to get a feel that this is interrupting their feed and they're engaging with it. Or if you're testing copy and headlines, the headlines that are getting you better click through rates are the ones that are talking directly to your ideal client and making them want to learn more. So the next metric we're going to look at is your conversion rate. So this tells us if those clicks we got above are actually turning into customers. So we're going to divide the total number of conversions by the clicks that we had. So when we're looking at our conversion rate, we do need to make sure we have conversion tracking in place. So to convert to something, the customer needs to do something and we need to be able to track it. For example, you might have clicks to phone numbers tracked as a conversion point. You might have a contact form tracked as a conversion point. You might have an add to cart. You might have a purchase. You might have added payment details. You might have lead capture as a conversion. So looking at your campaign and the goals, and then looking what you consider a conversion against those goals and ensuring that you have proper conversion tracking in place. So this means using the conversions API, or it means connecting your Meta account to your website using pixels. It could be connecting your Meta through to Shopify. And then with Google, again, that can be setting up conversion tracking. It can be via Google Analytics, Google Tag Manager. There's lots of technical tools that are involved. But if you're setting up a campaign where conversion is the objective, you want to definitely make sure that you have conversion tracking in place and you've tested it. So that's where a web developer or an ads expert is probably going to need to partner with you to get that set up and working properly. So, what does conversion rate tell us? Obviously, it tells us the rate at which we are converting, the rate at which our objective of conversion is being met. So, this is probably telling us the post click experience and the effectiveness of it. If you think about the click through rate, is how successful we were to get them to the point in the journey where they can convert. The conversion rate is what happened next. So if you have a low conversion rate, I'd be looking at things like your bounce rate on your website. So are you having a strong click through? They're getting to your website and the conversion's really poor, but when you dig deeper, it's actually that they're not spending much time on the website at all. That could tell us that there's a disconnect between the ad and the experience they had when they got there. So maybe they felt the ad promised them something that when they got to the page wasn't there. Or maybe the ad was about a product and when they clicked through on that product, it was out of stock or the URL took them somewhere completely different. So we want to make that experience of ad to destination so seamless and so matched that the person feels in complete alignment. The promise that the ad made, the hook that the ad had, how their curiosity was piqued is exactly met when they get to the destination page. Making sure that that page is great on mobile, great on desktop. It's really easy to convert as well. So, for example, if it was a freebie, let's get that form right at the top so I can opt in straight off the bat. So, again, I've got a chance of having a higher conversion rate because I'm giving them exactly what I promised in the ad. So, a low click through rate and a high conversion rate can mean that your targeting is not getting in front of the exact right people, but your promise or your delivery at destination is so strong that even that small number of people clicking through are converting so well. Conversion is something that you definitely want to have a handle on. If you're running ads, and I hear and see this all the time, and someone's managing your ads and they're talking to you about clicks and they're talking to you about click throughs, and it all looks really glowing. But on your side, you don't feel like you're converting that to business. You need to ensure your conversion tracking is in place. The other reason why conversion tracking is so important is that it actually helps the platform learn more as well. When Meta knows that it ran creative A and then that resulted in 5 sales or 5 leads or 5 inquiries, it wants to do more of that. It will look at who engaged with that and it will push it out to more of those people. And Google is certainly the same. So, conversion tracking is critical for any sort of campaign where conversion is the objective. Let's look at CPC. So you might hear about CPC from your ads management platform or ads managers. It is your cost per click. So what is it costing you to get somebody to click on that ad? Now that click could be about conversion. That click could be about traffic. That click could be about a profile view. It really depends on the objective of what we're trying to achieve. But we're looking at the total spend divided by the total clicks to understand if I spent $100 and I got 10 clicks, that means every click is costing me $10. Important to remember that's not every conversion. Until we have that conversion data, we don't actually know the effective cost or the true cost of conversion. So we'll talk about that more in a minute. But when we're talking about cost per click, it's that first action. The reason why cost per click matters, it's really about efficiency of traffic acquisition. So it's really about telling us, is it costing us a lot to get people to take those actions? Or is it quite efficient and effective? And again, if it's costing us a lot, is that because our targeting is wrong? Is it because our creator is not resonating? Or is it in fact just a really competitive market and the cost to get an action is high by nature? So cost per click can tell us a lot, but we also need to use a lot of intuition and expertise here. So a low cost per click can seem really great. With it, okay, we're delivering 15-cent cost per click to the profile, but are they low quality? Are they not doing the action that we need? Or are they uninterested or unengaged? So I think it's also really important to understand a low cost per click doesn't necessarily mean a great result, and a high cost per click doesn't necessarily mean a poor result. You need to look at the cost per click in the greater context of who you are targeting and what you are wanting them to do as well. We see cost per click vary from literally 15 cents to $10, $15. And Google generally has a higher cost per click because they're a higher intent audience. But even with Meta, we can see those cost per clicks be quite high, but it'd still be quite successful if things like the conversion rate are high, if the return on actual sales, which we're going to get to, is high. So without further ado, ROAS or ROAS. You might hear this metric talked about a lot, and it's a metric that helps us understand the ultimate performance, especially for our e-com and sales focused campaigns. So to be able to analyze ROAS, we need to know conversions, but we actually need to know the value of those conversions, because what we're looking at is revenue divided by ad spend. It's very important to understand that there's so many factors that affect ROAS, and having a great ROAS. So we tend to aim for a minimum of 3 when we look at ROAS. And the idea of 3 is that for every dollar invested, we're returning $3. We see that as kind of a break even point, with it covering the ad costs, the management fees, other marketing fees, the margin, so the product cost itself. But ROAS, again, is not the only factor of success. It does not, again, tell us the whole story about whether our business is successful, whether our campaigns are successful. There's a lot of technical attribution knowledge and attribution metrics, which I'm not going to get into today, but every platform will try to claim the sale. So this is where ROAS can be a little bit hard, and there can be a little bit of duplication. So our customer sees a Meta ad and they don't buy, but they have seen it. They then receive an email and they click on that email and they add to cart, but again, they don't buy. They've seen it. They're then retargeted via Google Shopping campaign. They see the product again. Maybe this time they buy. So, depending on your attribution window and setup, you might find that Meta, that your email marketing provider, say Klaviyo or MailChimp or Yotpo, and Google all claim that as a sale attributed to that platform. So now, say somebody spent $100, all 3 of those platforms are going, hey, I delivered $100 worth of revenue to you. So my ROAS is high, or my ROAS is whatever number it might be against the ad spend. There's lots of things we can do around first click and last click and attribution windows. And I can definitely dive into attribution in another podcast episode. But it's just important to take your ROAS with a bit of a grain of salt and to really understand cross platform, if you are across multiple platforms, the customer journey to conversion and how that may actually be affecting ROAS. But for the purposes of today, let's look at it really straightforward. Let's assume you're just using one platform and no email marketing, so that any revenue on platform is attributed to that platform. It's a great way to understand money in and money out, when your ad spend can impact the dollars that you receive in your bank and the units that you're selling. There's lots of different industry benchmarks as well. And again, it really does depend on what you're selling. Obviously, if your average cost or your average basket is in the hundreds or thousands of dollars, you might find you can get a stronger ROAS if you're quite an established brand. You might run $5,000 worth of ads and be easily able to turn that into $50,000 because of your average sale. Whereas if you're selling hair clips and their average basket is $15, your ROAS is going to be a lot harder to bump up. You're still going to need to invest maybe that $1,000 of ad spend a month, but just by the nature of your product, you might only be able to return $2,000 or $3,000 a month. So it really needs to be taken with that grain of salt as well. I think with ROAS, it's about really pushing yourself or the partner you're working with to try to get towards that 3, understanding the different campaigns that you're running, and some will have a lower ROAS. You might find that your retargeting audience has a high ROAS because, again, you're already down the marketing funnel with them, whereas a cold audience may have a lower ROAS because you're kind of warming them up and needing to take them on that journey. So ROAS can be a really strong indicator of revenue and success. But again, you need to look at it in the context of everything else that's going on in your business as well. So now I'm going to talk about cost per acquisition, or CPA. And CPA is going to be the last metric I talk about today. CPA really tells us about the cost of a result. So this is really important, especially if we can't track ROAS. So if your conversions don't have an immediate dollar value. So we work with a lot of builders. So we're generating leads for home renovations. Now, the dollar amount that gets signed off on that project doesn't feed back through a platform in a way that we can analyze. So we can't see the ROAS. We work with a dog trainer. He obviously has an initial package, but then often sells in a longer term package of support. Again, we can't track that customer lifetime value or even that kind of first 1 month revenue per client. So we can't see that ROAS. And that's where CPA comes in. And CPA can be a good metric to help us understand the effectiveness of our ad campaigns. So when we're looking at our CPA, it's the cost of the result. So the total spend divided by the number of conversions. So coming back to those conversions. So this could be leads. So it could be a lead generation campaign that captured client data. It could be a freebie. So again, there's not an immediate revenue connected to that. It could be, again, any kind of service where it's offline converted. So we can then divide our total spend on ads to our number of conversions to get a CPA. So understanding that cost per acquisition, that can help us, again, look at audiences and look at creative and headlines and see which is generating the most efficient CPA. It helps us balance our short-term spend with our long-term goals. And when we look at that CPA, so what it costs to acquire that one person versus our average CLTV, our customer lifetime value, it can help us look in reference if that CPA is worthwhile. So as I touched on with the building example, if their customer lifetime value tends to be, let's say, 500,000, we know if we get a CPA, so if it costs us 50, 60, $100 to acquire that customer, that we're still at a really profitable ratio. With our dog trainer, if that customer lifetime value is $500 and we can get a cost per acquisition around $20 or $30, again, we know the cost to acquire that individual customer is efficient based on the amount that one customer will spend in their lifetime with that business. So that's going to help, again, really understand the viability of your ad campaigns. And when it comes to your ROAS and it comes to your CPA, this is where, if you are outsourcing your ads, you really need to be in partnership with the business that you're working with or the freelancer that you're working with. And I was meeting a new client, well, a client that bought an existing business that we managed the other day. And I said to him, everybody has a different appetite for how much information they want to share with us as an agency. And I totally understand that. But the more you can tell us about the number of conversions in a campaign, the more you can tell us about the revenue that that campaign generates and how different promotions perform, the more informed we can be to drive a strategy that gets you a better result. When the platform can't tell us that information, there is nothing quite like working on an e-com where, I know exactly the products that are performing. I know exactly the revenue that it's bringing in, and I can continually make decisions based on that data. When you're working with products and services where the data is offline, the conversion data value and even the conversion number is offline, that 360-degree feedback and really welcoming that freelancer or agency into your business and trusting with them with that information will drive results so much stronger than if you keep it to yourself. And, I do understand that protection. And you need to be confident the person that you're working with is high in ethics, is going to honor that confidentiality, is going to work on your business in a silo and not share those learnings across other businesses or create a cookie cutter approach based on those learnings. But cost per acquisition and ROAS are really important to understand if ads are making you money or losing you money. So, as I said, all the different metrics become levers that you can pull. They become ways you can diagnose problems with your campaign or opportunities with your campaign, and really layering over that what you know about the person. So, what might be happening in your customer base, external forces, competition, new launches, all of that kind of information layered on top of these metrics is going to mean that you can continually optimize for your success. I would love to hear your ad performance problems. If you're running ads yourself and you're really stuck, I'd love to hear what's going on and really help you to be able to look at that. We offer health checks at Wise Up Marketing on ad performance. Any new customer that starts with us, we do a full audit and strategy across your account to make sure that we have a custom made strategy just for you based on what's happening in your business individually. But, I'd love to talk to you more. So please reach out on Instagram or LinkedIn and tell me your ads woes. And I look forward to problem solving them together. Thank you so much for listening today. I hope it's been valuable, and I look forward to the next time we catch up. That's a wrap on another episode of Ready, Set, Paid Ads. If you're looking for done-for-you services, training to upskill you in ads management, or free and paid resources to help you plan and execute better ads, head to wiseupmarketing.com.au. If you've loved this episode, be sure to subscribe for future episodes. And if you know someone that would love this podcast too, go on and share it.